Crash landing on Zephyroth. Warning lights screamed their final song as Marcus Reed fought to keep the cargo hauler steady. Sparks cascaded from the navigation console while the quantum drive sputtered like a dying heart. He had been a systems engineer for 12 years, but he had never seen a failure cascade this fast or this completely. "Come on, you piece of junk," Marcus muttered, sweat dripping down his weathered face. At 34, he was getting too old for these deep space runs, but the money was good and the solitude suited him. Relationships had never been his strong suit. Machines made sense. People were complicated. The view screen showed an unknown planet rushing toward him, its surface gleaming with strange crystalline formations that caught the light of twin suns. No star charts showed anything in this sector, which meant either his navigation was completely fried or he had stumbled into uncharted space. Marcus strapped himself into the emergency seat and activated the crash protocols. The ship shuddered as it hit the planet's atmosphere, hull plates glowing cherry red from the friction. Through the chaos, he caught glimpses of impossible architecture below, spires that seemed to grow from living crystal, gardens that sparkled like captured starlight. The impact drove his consciousness into darkness. When Marcus awakened, gentle hands were examining his injuries. He opened his eyes to find himself staring into a face that belonged in a dream. The woman leaning over him had skin like polished moonstone, with veins of silver light pulsing beneath the surface. Her hair cascaded in waves of pure platinum, and her eyes were the deep blue of Arctic ice. "You are awake," she said, her voice carrying an accent he could not place. "I am Naya of the Crystal Guard." "Oh, you have crashed in our sacred grove." Marcus tried to sit up, wincing as his ribs protested. "Hey, Marcus, human, from Earth." He looked around, finding himself in what appeared to be a medical facility carved from living crystal. Everything glowed with soft, warm light. "Human Naya," repeated as if tasting an unfamiliar word. "We have not seen your kind for many centuries. Our archives speak of humans, but they were thought to be myths." She stood, and Marcus realized she was tall, nearly 6.5 feet, with the athletic build of a warrior. She wore armor that seemed to be grown rather than forged, crystalline plates that moved with her body like a second skin. "Where am I?" Marcus asked, struggling to his feet despite her gesture to remain seated. "You are on Zephora in the realm of the Crystal Sisterhood?" Naya's expression grew guarded. "A world where no males have walked for over 500 years? Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with his injuries. "What happened to them?" "They were banished," Naya said simply, "after the Great War that nearly destroyed our world. The Council of Mothers decided that males brought only violence and chaos. We have lived in peace ever since." "And now I'm here," Marcus said, understanding dawning. "Now you are here." Naya moved to the window, gazing out at gardens where women tended to crystal trees that hummed with energy. "And the council must decide what to do with you." Marcus joined her at the window, close enough to catch her scent, something like ozone. "And mountain air. What are my options?" Naya turned to look at him, and for a moment he saw something vulnerable in her ice-blue eyes. Death, exile, or imprisonment. Those are the traditional choices for threats to our society. "Which am I?" Marcus asked quietly. "I am not yet certain," Naya admitted. "But you saved my life when your ship crashed. Explosion would have killed me if you had not pushed me clear before losing consciousness. That counts for something." Had no memory of saving anyone, but he was not about to argue. "What happens now? Now you heal. I stand guard over you until the council convenes." Naya moved away from the window, but not before Marcus caught the way her crystalline skin seemed to dim slightly, as if some inner light was fading. "Are you all right?" he asked, surprising himself with his concern for this strange, beautiful alien. Not his eyes widened, as if no one had asked her that question in a very long time. "I am well enough to protect you," she said, but her voice carried a weariness that spoke of deeper troubles. As the days passed and Marcus healed, he began to understand that something was terribly wrong on Zephora. The women he glimpsed through his window moved with increasing lethargy, their crystalline skin growing dimmer. Even Naya seemed to fade a little more each day, though she tried to hide it. "Your people are dying," Marcus said on his third day. When Naya brought him food, some kind of crystalline fruit that tasted like starlight. "We are not dying," Naya replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "We are simply ... changing. Changing into what?" Naya was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat beside his bed, closer than she had dared before. "Something less than what we, where our connection to Zephyr's heart grows weaker with each passing year. Our children are born dimmer than their mothers. We fear that in another century the crystal sisterhood will exist only in memory." Marcus reached out instinctively to comfort her, then stopped, remembering the taboos of her society. But Naya surprised him by taking his hand in hers. The moment their skin touched, her crystalline veins flared brighter, pulsing with renewed energy. They both stared at their joined hands in wonder and growing understanding. The dying light council chamber was a marvel of living architecture, its walls grown from crystal that sang in harmonious frequencies. Marcus stood in the center of the vast space, surrounded by 12 women who radiated authority despite the dimming light in their crystalline skin. At their head sat Vera, the eldest of the council, her once brilliant form now barely more luminous than polished stone. "You claim to be human," Vera said, her voice echoing in the crystal chamber. "Yet humans are creatures of myth and legend. How do we know you are not some deception sent by our ancient enemies?" Marcus had spent the morning with Naya, learning what he could of their history. The Crystal Sisterhood had once shared Zephora with a warrior race of males who drew power from the planet's molten core. The Great War had been fought over control of the life force that sustained both peoples. The women had won, banishing the males to the deep places of the world, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. "I can prove what I am," Marcus said, pulling out his damaged datapad. The device flickered to life, displaying images of Earth, his ship, the cargo manifest for his final run. "These are records of my life, my world." The council members leaned forward, their skin brightening with curiosity as Naya translated the alien symbols. Vera's expression remained skeptical, but Marcus noticed how her eyes lingered on the images of Earth's blue skies and green forests. "Even if you are what you claim," Vera said finally, "you are still male. Your kind brings nothing but chaos and destruction. We have built a perfect society without you." "Perfect, except for the fact that you're dying," Marcus replied, earning sharp intakes of breath from the assembled women. Naya tensed beside him, ready to defend him if necessary. "We are not dying," Vera insisted, but her voice wavered. "Your birth rates are declining. Your connection to your planet's life force grows weaker every year. How long before the last Crystal Sisterhood member fades away completely?" Marcus stepped forward, his engineering mind working through the problem. "You've created a closed system, and closed systems always fail eventually. They need new input, new energy. And you believe you are that new energy?" Vera's tone was mocking, but Marcus caught the desperate hope hidden beneath her words. "I know that when Naya touches me, her light grows brighter. I know that my biosignature is different from anything you've encountered before. Maybe that difference is exactly what your world needs." The council erupted in argument, voices overlapping in the musical language of Zephora. Naya moved closer to Marcus, her presence both protective and possessive. When the debate finally died down, Vera spoke again. "We will test your claims. If you can prove that your presence strengthens our connection to Zephora's heart, we will consider allowing you to live. If not..." She did not need to finish the threat. "How do we test it?" Marcus asked. Vera smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "The Crystal Gardens. If your energy can revive even one of the dying groves, we will know you speak truth." Naya's hand found his arm, her touch sending warmth through both of them. "The gardens have been failing for decades," she whispered. "Even our most powerful healers cannot restore them." "Then I guess we'll find out what human stubbornness can accomplish," Marcus replied. Trying to project more confidence than he felt, the Crystal Gardens stretched for miles beyond the city. Vast groves, where crystal trees once grew in perfect harmony. Now many stood dark and lifeless, their musical hum reduced to silence. The air itself felt thin, drained of the vital energy that sustained all life on ZEPHYRA.NAIA, led Marcus to a grove that had been among the first to fail. The crystal trees stood like frozen lightning, beautiful but utterly still. "This was where I played as a child," she said softly. The trees would sing lullabies that carried on the wind. Marcus approached the nearest tree, placing his hands. On its crystalline trunk was cold, lifeless, but he could sense something dormant within, like a sleeping circuit, waiting for the right signal to wake up. "Tell me about the connection," he said. "How does it work?" Naya moved behind him, her hands covering his on the tree's surface. "We are born linked to Zephyr's heart, the great crystal at our world's core. Through that connection, we channel life energy to the forests, the gardens, all living things. But the connection grows weaker with each generation." Marcus closed his eyes, trying to feel what she described. Slowly, he became aware of a faint pulse deep within the planet, like a massive heartbeat almost too quiet to hear. They're threading. Through everything was Naya's life force, dimmer than it should be, but still beautifully complex. "I can feel it," he whispered. "It's like a vast network, but the signals are getting weak." "Yes," Naya breathed, her excitement making her skin flare brighter. "You can sense the web of life, but how can you touch it?" "You are not born of Zephyr." Marcus thought about the engineering principle that had guided his entire career. Sometimes, the solution was not to fix what was broken, but to add something new to the system. He pressed harder against the tree, pouring his own life energy into the connection, adding his human biosignature to the network that sustained Zephyr. The change was immediate and dramatic. The crystal tree blazed to life, its trunk glowing with renewed energy. The light spread outward, awakening neighboring trees in a cascade of illumination. Within minutes, the entire grove hummed with restored vitality, their combined song creating a symphony that brought tears to Naya's eyes. "Impossible," she gasped, but her hands were still touching his. And Marcus could feel her life force strengthening, drawing power from the restored grove and from his own human energy. "Not impossible," Marcus said, turning to face her. "They were close now, close enough that he could see the wonder in her crystalline eyes, just different. Sometimes different is exactly what a system needs." Their first kiss was tentative, uncertain, a bridge between two species that had never touched before, but when their lips met, both of their life forces flared brighter, creating a feedback loop that strengthened them both. The crystal trees around them responded, their song growing richer and more complex. When they finally broke apart, Marcus and Naya were both glowing, their combined energy creating patterns of light that danced across the garden. For the first time in decades, this corner of Zephora was truly alive again. "The council will not believe this," Naya whispered, but she did not pull away from his embrace. "Then we'll show them," Marcus replied, knowing that their real challenges were just beginning. Word of the garden's restoration spread through the Crystal City like wildfire. By the time Marcus and Naya returned, crowds had gathered in the streets, their crystalline skin flickering with excitement and hope. Children who had never seen the gardens at full bloom pressed against their mothers, asking if the songs they heard in the distance were real, but not everyone celebrated their success. "You have doomed us all," Counselor Thesa declared when they stood before the assembly. The next morning, her crystalline form was nearly transparent with age, but her voice carried the weight of centuries. "By awakening the old connections, you risk calling attention to those we banished long ago." "The deep dwellers," Vera added, her expression grave. "The males we cast into the molten tunnels beneath Zephyr. They have been quiet for 5 centuries, but your energy signature may wake them from their exile." Marcus felt Naya tense beside him. She had told him about the deep dwellers during their long walk back from the gardens, the warrior males who had refused to accept banishment and instead retreated to the planet's core.
Drawing power from the molten heart of Zephora itself? Maybe?
"It's time to end this war," Marcus said, his words causing an uproar among the assembled women. "You've been fighting for so long you've forgotten why it started. Your people are dying separately, but together you might survive." "The males cannot be trusted," Vera snapped. "They seek only to dominate and destroy. We learned this truth through centuries of conflict." "And what have you learned through centuries of isolation?" Marcus challenged. You've created a beautiful society, but it's dying. Maybe the problem isn't that males are evil. Maybe the problem is that you need each other. The debate that followed was heated and complex, conducted in the musical language of Zephyra that Naya translated for him in whispers.
Oh.
But beneath the political arguments, Marcus could sense something else: fear. These women had built their entire identity around surviving without males, and his presence threatened that foundation. The session was interrupted by a young guard who burst into the chamber, her crystalline skin pulsing with alarm. Forgive the intrusion, honored council, but there are seismic disturbances in the deep tunnels. The sensors detect movement in areas that have been quiet for decades. Vera's face went pale. They wake. The deep dwellers stir. Because of him, Thesa pointed at Marcus accusingly. His alien energy has disturbed the balance we have maintained for centuries. Or because they can sense that Zephyra is dying, Marcus countered. Maybe they're just as desperate to save their world as you are. The council session dissolved into chaos as reports flooded in of seismic activity throughout the deep tunnel network. Marcus found himself escorted back to his quarters under heavy guard, with Naya assigned to watch over him. They're afraid, Naya said once they were alone. We've lived with the myth of our own superiority for so long that the idea of needing males is terrifying. And what do you think? Marcus asked, moving to the window that overlooked the restored gardens. In the distance, he could see more groves beginning to brighten as his energy signature spread through the planet's life network. Naya joined him at the window, her reflection ghost-like in the crystal glass. I think you're the most dangerous person who has ever lived on Zephora. Marcus turned to look at her, surprised by her words. Dangerous because you make us hope, she continued, her voice soft. Dangerous because when I touch you, I remember what it feels like to be truly alive. Dangerous because you're making me question everything I've been taught about males and society and the way things must be. She moved closer, close enough that he could see the pulse of light beneath her skin, the way her bioluminescence responded to his presence. I've been a guardian all my life, Naya said. I protected our people, defended our borders, enforced our laws. But now I find myself wanting to protect you, even if it means standing against my own kind. Marcus reached up to cup her face, marveling at the way her skin warmed under his touch. You don't have to choose sides, Naya. Maybe there's a third option. Maybe we can find a way to bring everyone together. The council will never allow it. Vera would rather see Zephora die than admit she was wrong about males. Then we don't ask permission, Marcus said, pulling her closer. We show them a better way. Their kiss was deeper this time, more urgent, charged with the electricity of two different species, discovering they were compatible in ways that defied logic. Naya's crystalline skin blazed brighter as their life forces intertwined, and Marcus could feel his own human energy being transformed, refined, made stronger by her touch. When they broke apart, both of them were glowing so brightly that the crystal walls of the room reflected their light like prisms, creating patterns of color that danced across every surface. This is what they fear, Naya whispered, her hands tracing the patterns of light that flowed between them. This connection, this power, if other women saw what we can create together. ... Hearts united, worlds divot at the attack, came at dawn not from above, but from below. Marcus woke to the sound of crystal walls cracking and Naya's urgent voice calling his name. The floor beneath their feet trembled as something massive moved. Through the deep tunnels that honeycombed Zephyr's crust. They're coming, Naya said, already pulling on her crystalline armor. The deep dwellers have broken through the ancient seals. Marcus could feel it too, a disturbance in the planet's life network, like static interference disrupting a complex circuit. Whatever was rising from the depths carried its own energy signature. Wild and chaotic compared to the refined harmonies of the Crystal Sisterhood, the first breach occurred in the main plaza, where a fountain of molten crystal erupted. From the ground, through the glowing fissure, came the first deep dweller Marcus had ever seen, a male Zephyrian, who stood nearly 8 feet tall. His skin like black volcanic glass shot through with veins of liquid fire. His eyes burned like coals, and when he spoke, his voice carried the rumble of tectonic shifts. Sisters, he called out, his words echoing across the plaza where terrified women had gathered. "We have slept long in the fire's embrace, but now we wake to find our world dying. The time of separation is ended. Go back to your tunnels, Corin," Vera commanded, appearing with her full council guard. "The surface is forbidden to your kind. The ancient laws are clear." A deep dweller called Corin laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Ancient laws written by those who feared our power. But what good are laws when the world they govern crumbles to ash?" Marcus watched from his guarded position as more fissures opened throughout the city. Dozens of deep dwellers emerged, their molten energy signatures creating chaos in the carefully balanced crystal matrix that sustained the surface civilization. But what struck him most was not their fearsome appearance, it was the desperate hope in their burning eyes. "They're not attacking," he said to Naya, who stood ready with her spear. "They're trying to save their world too. They carry the fire of Zephyr's core," Naya replied. "If they lose control, they could melt the entire city." But even as she spoke, Marcus could see the deep dwellers struggling to contain their own power. Their volcanic energy was as much a burden as a blessing, requiring constant control to prevent destruction. They were dying too, in their own way, burning out from the inside as Zephyr's heart grew weaker. Bah! Both sides need what the other has, Marcus realized. The Sisterhood has the crystal network. The deep dwellers have access to the planetary core. Separately, you're both failing. Together we could restore Zephora completely, Corin said, having overheard Marcus's words with his enhanced senses. "You are the human whose energy signature echoes through the planet's song. We have felt your presence in the deep places." Vera stepped between Corin and Marcus, her crystalline spear gleaming with energy. "You will not corrupt him with your violence, deep dweller. He is under the protection of the Council." Protection. Corin's molten eyes narrowed. "You mean imprisonment? You would rather see Zephora die than share power with those you have cast out." The confrontation might have escalated into violence. But a new voice cut through the tension, young, clear, and filled with desperate hope. "Please stop fighting," cried Zira, a child of the Crystal Sisterhood whose transparent form flickered like a dying candle. "Can't you see that we're all fading? The crystals, the fires, everything's going dark." The child's words struck both factions into silence. She was right. Marcus could feel it in the planet's struggling heartbeat. While the surface dwellers and the deep dwellers maintained their ancient grudges, Zephora itself was slowly dying beneath their feet. "There's another way," Marcus said, stepping forward despite Vera's protests. "I can link both energy signatures, crystal and fire, surface and depth. But it requires cooperation, not conflict." "Impossible," Vera declared. "The energy matrices are incompatible. Any attempt to merge them would result in catastrophic feedback." "Not if you have a buffer," Marcus replied. "Human bioenergy is different enough from both Zephyrian signatures that it can serve as a bridge. I can harmonize the frequencies, create a stable connection between the crystal network and the planetary core." Corin studied Marcus with those burning eyes. "And what would you require in return, Bridge Builder? An end to the war?" "Permanent. Cooperation between surface and depth?" And Marcus looked at Naya, seeing understanding dawn in her crystalline eyes. "Acceptance that some connections transcend old boundaries." What followed was the most complex negotiation in Zephyrian history. Vera and Corin circled each other like ancient enemies, each protecting secrets and nursing grudges that went back centuries. But gradually, as Marcus demonstrated how his energy could harmonize their different signatures, both sides began to see the possibility of salvation. The breakthrough came when Naya volunteered to undergo the first experimental connection. She placed one hand on a crystal formation powered by the Sisterhood's network, the other on a piece of volcanic stone that Corin had brought from the deep places. Marcus stood between them, serving as the living bridge that allowed their energies to merge without destroying each other. The result was breathtaking. Crystal and fire blended into something entirely new, a harmony that was neither purely light nor purely heat, but a fusion that strengthened both elements. Naya's crystalline skin took on subtle patterns of flowing warmth, while Corin's volcanic form gained threads of crystalline structure that made his fire burn cleaner and more controlled. "It works," Vera whispered, her voice filled with wonder and fear, but the implications. The implications are that Zephora can be saved, Marcus said firmly. But only if you're willing to let go of 5 centuries of hate. The council session that followed lasted 3 days. Representatives from both the Crystal Sisterhood and the Deep Dwellers argued, negotiated, and slowly hammered out the framework for a new society. Marcus found himself at the center of every discussion, his human perspective, offering solutions that neither side had considered. But not everyone was pleased with the changes. You have upset the natural order, Thesa warned Marcus on the final night of negotiations. There will be consequences you cannot foresee. The natural order was killing your planet, Marcus replied. Sometimes you have to break things to fix them. Thesa's crystalline form shimmered with barely contained anger. And what of your connection to Naya? Do you think the council will allow such a pairing? A human and a guardian creating offspring that belong to neither species? Marcus felt a chill at her words. In all the political maneuvering, he had not considered the personal costs of success. That's our choice to make, is it? Issa smiled coldly. Tomorrow, the council votes on the Deep Dweller Alliance. They may accept cooperation for survival's sake, but they will never accept you as anything more than a useful tool. That night, Marcus stood with Naya on a balcony overlooking the Crystal City. Below them, the lights of surface dwellers and deep dwellers mingled for the first time in centuries, creating new patterns in the ancient streets. Thesa spoke to you, Naya said. It was not a question. She's right, isn't she? Even if we save Zephora, there's no place for us in this new world. Naya moved closer, her warmth a comfort against the cool night air. There's always a place for those who build bridges instead of walls. But what kind of place? Will we always be outsiders? Tolerated but never truly accepted? Naya took his hands in hers, their combined light casting dancing shadows on the crystal walls. Then we make our own place. Together. As if in response to her words, the planet's heartbeat seemed to strengthen, pulsing with renewed vitality as the crystal network and the deep fires began their first tentative integration. Zephora was healing, but the real test of their love was still to come. Tomorrow would bring the final vote, and with it, the future of 2 species and one impossible romance. The new dawn, the vote was unanimous, but Marcus could see the reluctance in every council member's crystalline features. Survival had trumped prejudice, but just barely. The Deep Dweller Alliance was approved, the integration protocols established, and the great work of healing Zephora could begin in earnest. But as Thesa had predicted, there was no place in the new order for Marcus and Naya's relationship. The human will oversee the integration process, Vera announced to the assembled crowds. His unique biosignature makes him invaluable to our world's restoration. But he will do so under strict supervision, and any personal connections that might compromise his objectivity must be severed. Marcus felt Naya stiffen beside him, her crystalline skin flickering with suppressed emotion. They had saved their world, but the price was their love. I won't accept that, Naya said, her voice carrying clearly across the plaza. Marcus is not your tool to be used and discarded. He's a person with the right to make his own choices. And what choice would that be? Vera asked coldly. To bind himself to a guardian who can never give him the human companionship his species requires. To father hybrid children who will belong to neither world? Be realistic, child, the crowd murmured, torn between gratitude for Marcus's help and fear of the changes he represented. But then a new voice spoke up, Corin, his volcanic tones carrying the authority of the deep places. The human has proven his worth 100 times over, the Deep Dweller said. Without him, both our peoples would have died in stubborn isolation. If he chooses to stay, we will welcome him as kin. And if Guardian Naya chooses to stand with him, added another Deep Dweller, she too will find acceptance in the depths. Vera's face flushed with anger. You would steal our greatest guardian? We steal nothing, Corin replied. We offer what you cannot acceptance without condition.
Ow.
Marcus felt the weight of decision pressing down on him.
Ow.
Stay on Zephora and face constant suspicion from the Crystal Sisterhood, or leave with Naya to make a new life in the deep places. Either choice would tear him away from the world he had grown to love, but then the planet itself made the choice for him. The integration network that Marcus had established suddenly surged with uncontrolled energy, without the careful balance. He provided the crystal and fire energies began to clash again, creating feedback loops that threatened to tear Zephora apart. The ground shook, buildings cracked, and the carefully restored gardens began to dim once more. "The network is destabilizing," one of the technicians reported. "We're losing containment on all levels." Marcus rushed to the control center, Naya at his side despite Vera's protests. The displays showed chaos throughout the planetary grid. Crystal nodes overloading, thermal vents erupting, the delicate balance between surface and depth collapsing into discord. "I have to get to the primary junction," Marcus said, studying the cascade failure patterns. "If I can manually adjust the harmonic frequencies." "The primary junction is in the deep core," Corin said grimly. "A place where only the most powerful fire bearers can survive. Your human physiology would be consumed in moments." "Then we go together," Naya said firmly. "My crystal matrix can provide some protection, and your fire can clear the path." "Absolutely not," Vera commanded. "I forbid this madness." But even as she spoke, more reports flooded in of system failures throughout Zephora. The planet was dying again, and this time, the damage might be irreversible. "Forbid all you want," Marcus said, moving toward the transport platform. "I'm going to save this world with or without your permission." The journey to Zephyra's core was harrowing. Marcus, Naya, and Corin descended through tunnels that grew hotter and more dangerous with each level. The walls pulsed with the planet's struggling heartbeat, and the air itself seemed to burn with chaotic energy. There, Corin pointed to a vast chamber where crystal formations and lava flows converged around a central node that blazed with uncontrolled power, the heart of Zephora. "If you can stabilize the energy flow here, it will cascade throughout the entire network." Marcus approached the node, feeling the raw power that emanated from Zephora's core. This was the source of all life on the planet, but it was wounded, scarred by centuries of division and neglect. Healing it would require more than technical skill. It would require the kind of sacrifice that could not be measured in engineering terms. "I need to make direct contact," Marcus said, understanding flooding through him.